Hi, my name is Max Krasminski. I'm the culture editor at the Crimson White, so my desk deals with all things campus life, arts, music, and all that kind of stuff.
My name's Ella, and I'm the opinions editor. So I deal with everything from op-eds to letters to the editor to guest columns. That includes my staff itself, and then also managing the email for guest submissions.
So coming into college, I actually had never done journalism before, and I kind of just saw like a flyer on Instagram that was like student media open house. So I showed up, and then a week later I submitted my application, and I was part of the news and culture desk. And from there, I've kind of just been writing, and now I'm an editor this year.
Yeah, I'm an English major, so writing has always been something I'm pretty interested in. And at the end of my freshman year, I had a class with the previous opinions editor who encouraged me to apply.
Do a day in the life. What does a typical day look like for you working for the Crimson White?
Our days are kind of spread out. I think like we come here to our office space every Wednesday and Sunday to do newsletter production, but really I think we work pretty much every day of the week. My stories are due like 3 days before newsletter, so I get them, I edit them along with my assistant Olivia, who's not here, and the next day we send them off to copy, and then we send them to our managing editor Jacob, and then when we get here on Wednesdays and Sundays, that's when Maven, our editor-in-chief, goes through them.
We usually have 20 plus people on each of our desks that we're in almost constant communication with regarding future pieces that are currently being written, and we're always attempt to be available for those people to have questions and us be able to answer them.
In what ways do you think the Crimson White impacts the University of Alabama as a community?
So we have the opportunity to cover campus events, but we're also out covering things in the community. We recently covered like a vintage market that was started by a local business. We go and cover festivals out in like Moundville. So we kind of cover all aspects of like school, city, and sometimes even statewide stuff.
I would consider Tuscaloosa somewhat of a news desert when it comes to coverage, just because we are in between some of the major cities in Alabama. We're not Birmingham, we're not Montgomery, we're not Mobile, we're not Huntsville. So serving as a resource for not only campus, but also the surrounding communities around Tuscaloosa as well.
I think the biggest challenges that we face probably day to day is just stigma surrounding the name of the Crimson White. I know for each of my pieces, my writers have to get 3 separate interviews, which you're like, there's 40,000 people on this campus, that shouldn't be hard, but it actually gets a lot harder than you think for some reason, especially like because we do like value ourselves kind of on our ethics and like building those skills, like going up to someone and introducing yourself as being like with the Crimson White. Sometimes they give you a bit of a stronger reaction, especially Greek life communities, student government officials. They will not really talk to you at all unless they need to.
And building off of some of our challenges with freedom of speech, I feel like there's a bit of a tension that's been in the newsroom the last couple of months that we're actively working through, but there is a fear there with that.
How are you guys keeping students engaged with the newspaper?
I think our biggest thing currently is just doing what we've always done. We're putting out 2 newsletter editions a week that goes out to every single student unless they unsubscribe from our newsletter. We have print copies twice a semester. We actually have one coming out next week, which is really exciting. And then we also do something called Horizons, which is like our guide to campus for new students, and we give that out to pretty much every student and parent at Bama Bound. So kind of just right away getting students connected with the newspaper, and then also building that relationship once they're on campus has just been really good for us.
Me and Max have really cool positions here where we're really able to, on his side, highlight student voices and the successes of students on our campus. And then on my side, my writers write about issues that are prevalent to students on campus and things that people our age really care about. So I think gearing our content and what we write about to what students want to see is something that we've done as well.
I had like a silly story, but the night that Hector Gutierrez emailed the entire school, I was able to get his phone number within 30 minutes and get on a voice call with him. And we had published an article, I think maybe 2 hours after the entire event had started, and like everyone was emailing back and all that stuff. And we got it posted on our Instagram, and our Instagram has 13,000 followers currently. But that post just took off, like, because every student could connect with it. So it's like people were sharing it, people were sending it to one another. and it ended up getting almost 15,000 likes, which is pretty good for like our engagement. So I think social media is like a valuable tool for us, especially with events like that everyone's going to connect with on campus. And even if they might not necessarily follow us, they're still going to see it, they're still going to like it and engage with it, and that's spreading our news.
In recent years, we've shifted from a primarily print distribution to a primarily online distribution, and our print has decreased. I think we used to be a daily newspaper and then to a weekly, and now we're sitting at a quarterly print distribution with a twice weekly online distribution. So that's changed a little bit regarding the format that we publish in.
I think the biggest thing that I see is that people think people are doing it for like a resume builder, which I have seen people that are like that in the past, but I have people from all different backgrounds on my desk. So like recently I had a chemical engineer reply and I was like, sure, like I'm not sure what you want to get out of this. So I asked them that when they first showed up and they were like, I just really like to write. So like, you know, we kind of get all sorts of backgrounds. Our managing editor is actually also chemical engineering. I think it's like a beneficial experience no matter who participates.
Yeah, I'm gonna parrot what Max said just a little bit. A lot of people assume that you have to be studying something related to news, media, or journalism in order to write for the Crimson White, which I would argue that my desk is primarily not people with news, media, or journalism backgrounds. So some of these bigger news outlets are not covering issues specific to campus, which is understandable considering we are, in theory, a minuscule community within Alabama. But there are important stories going on campus, and there are stories that are specifically interesting to students and the greater University of Alabama community that we get the privilege to cover fully.
Going off of that, I think there are so many stories that happen on this campus specifically that reporters don't even hear about on the national level until someone like student journalists write about it. Just a couple of examples I can think of was the Ali Reza Daroudi deportation. Our editor-in-chief, Maven Navarro, wrote all those articles, and they ended up getting picked up by the New York Times. They used her as like a heavy source on all of those. And then even recently with the magazine suspension, Maven and our managing editor Jacob wrote a lot of those articles, and had they not been reporting on that from day one, like the second that news dropped, it probably wouldn't have gotten to the place that it is today where the New York Times and all of those bigger outlets are reporting on it.
A lot of our sources, we have a very tight-knit community here in Tuscaloosa that allows us to have access to stories like that first. And that's a privilege that a lot of major news outlets don't have when it comes to some of these tips we get. I believe the two stories Max was referring to, one, we had the privilege because we were in the Office of Student Media, so we were some of the first people to know about the magazine suspensions. And then when it comes to the deportation earlier last semester, I think that was a hot tip that was sent to Maven's email from a student here. So just the tight-knit community. In the last year, we've faced quite a few, like, I would say monumental events when it comes to freedom of speech and things of such working here. So it really just emphasizes how important student journalism is on a campus like this and for college students as a whole, especially when it comes to some of these bigger events that we've had to tackle this year coverage-wise.
Building off of that, I think specifically on the storytelling side, this campus is so big, it's so diverse. Like, there's no other group in the city that's going to cover all 40,000 students on this campus like we do. So I think just getting to tell those stories, especially like students with businesses, students that are off winning awards that you've never even heard of, things like that are always happening on this campus, and getting like the opportunities to tell their stories has just been like really important for us.